people say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.
October Red is sponsored by SA Security. Maximum security, minimum fuss.
Hello, good evening, good night, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I'm Abs of October Red, and I'm quite happily joined by the one and only Mr. Smith, Matchroom Boxing CEO. We've gone early today. I did put 5:15 as a time, just because you're abroad,
Gotta
Frank.
be late.
Yeah, but just in case, I know it goes, you're a busy man, but welcome back. Happy New Year to you. Pleasantries to start off with.
How are you?
All right, all the better for seeing you. I've seen you do some bits here and there, so I was like, I've got to get him in before, obviously, 2026 kicks off, which it already has kicked off big for you. But Frank, can I just congratulate, obviously, you guys, the Matchroom team, and obviously Dalton Smith, his dad, Grant Smith, the Steel City Gym, Sheffield, England, United Kingdom, on a fantastic performance. He really did his country proud.
Yeah, 100%. What a spectacular win. And he did it the hard way, all the way through. You know, he won every belt along the way. He worked his way into a mandatory position against the guy no one really wanted to fight in Cipriano Matias. He went in there, he fought him at his own fight. And, you know, what a finish. What a way to put your name on that world level. He's now #1 ranked with the Ring magazine. And, you know, he has got so many opportunities from here, and he truly deserves it. And as a family, they deserve it as well. You know, we've worked with him for 7-8 years, something like that now, with Dalton, Grant, been on that journey together. And, yeah, it's amazing to see someone like that do well. Because he's not a big, outspoken, brash character.
No.
You know, so he went in there and he did his talking in the ring, and what a win, like I say, and he's going to set himself up for the biggest fights in the sport.
The thing is why it's kind of sweet is because it started off a little bit bitter. Obviously, it started off with a purse bid. You guys didn't win the purse bid. He's going out onto foreign soil. I spoke to Subriel Matthias before the fight, and he said he fancied New York because he wanted somewhere neutral. Then the scandal come out about Subriel Matthias's drug test, coincidentally a day after I spoke to him. That was obviously A-OK, for a better word. I'll never get involved in the testing politics because there's too much of a grey area. So against all odds, but you guys went out there with him. You got on the plane. You went out there and you supported him from start to finish. So for the naysayers that kind of said, you know, you abandoned him, you weren't there for him, what would you say to them?
No, look, I've seen various comments, you know, about it. We lost a purse bid, but one thing I'll say is we always take part in purse bids. We don't pull fighters out of purse bids. We don't take away their dream opportunities to go and win titles. Were we disappointed we lost the purse bid? Of course. But, you know, we're in a commercial business. And that's the joy of purse bids. You never know what someone else is going to bid. Someone comes in with a mad, huge bid and loses money on an event. You know, that's going to happen. Our job was to deliver and be on that path, you know, to get him to that position. And that's what we did. But yeah, were we disappointed? Of course we were. But Dalton went out there and did what he had to do. You know, and we were alongside him the whole way. We actually had a huge team. We had about 8 of us out there because he means so much to us, you know, and we've been on that, like I say, been on that journey from day one with him. You know, we were all there behind him. You know, it was definitely a night I couldn't have missed. Eddie was there. A load of our team were there. So it was, you know, it was a special night. So I don't really listen too much to what people say. He went out there and did a job, and he deserves all the credit for it.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to see him, like you said, get into that #1 ranking with the ring. He's done it. And I like the speech that his father gave at the end of it. And Dalton was like, you know, Dad, leave it. And he was like, no, I'm going to have my 50 pence worth. I'm going to get up. I'm going to grab this mic and I'm going to say what you've achieved, you know, as a first time fighter from the UK. So to see even that there, his dad's been in the corner with him. Dalton's often said, we learn boxing together. His dad wasn't this expert trainer, and they've gone through it. And it just goes to show if you really work hard, you really want stuff, you really want to achieve stuff, you've got the right backing, anything's possible.
100%. And look, he's got a proud dad there who's, you know, been on that journey with him, you know, and it hasn't always been the easiest journey. You know, he's been through tough fights. He's been through tough nights to get to that point, but they deserve it. As I say, nice people. There's not always nice people you get to deal with. These are very nice people, great family, and always the same people around him that have got into this point. And so to be a part of that journey, a small part of that journey, is a special thing to be involved in. Sometimes boxing can be quite a negative space. And I said after that fight, it was probably one of the best nights I've experienced. I think because as well, the fight you felt like it was falling into the way Matthias wanted the fight to go, So when he then did what he did, it's even then more special, to see the way he won. So yeah, no, it was amazing seeing. I'm so happy for Grant, Dalton obviously, but for Grant as well, and all the team around him. Sean O'Toole's done a great job. He manages him, Pierce, everyone that's part of the team. Carl, Johnny, they've all done a tremendous job and all been there on that journey together. And like I say, I'm happy because now he puts himself in a position as number one to go and get any fight he wants.
Yeah. You've got a stat card. You've literally, like I said, you've started 2026 off on the ground running. I know that
we could have 4 world champions, new world champions this month. Dalton Smith kicked it off. Andy Cruz next weekend in Vegas. Then you got Amo Williams in the US against Carlos Adames, and you got Josh Kelly. So we could have 4 new world champions just in January.
And that is what I was going to get onto, because obviously, like you said, you've got, is it Raymond Muratalla versus Andy Cruz?
Yeah, Andy Cruz, yeah.
And that's in Las Vegas. So you're kicking off next week, global once again. That fight and Andy Cruz's kind of journey with you guys as well.
Yeah, look, he's 6-0. Obviously, the plan when we signed him was go straight into the big fights, and he's built his way up. We went down the IBF route because that's where we saw the opportunity to get the shot.
Okay.
We all know what Andy Cruz is about. He's probably one of the world's best amateurs of recent times, turning over into the pro ranks, and he's delivering performances that people want to see as well. He becomes a world champion next Saturday night. It's a tough fight. Muratalla is a very tough opponent, but we believe Andy Cruz is ready for that, ready for that kind of level, and he's going to show why he deserves to be at the top of the sport.
You've got obviously January, I think it's the 31st, I think the week after,
Murtazalia against Josh Kelly. Yeah, IBF world title there, 154 pound.
And then you've got the ring card as well, which is the same night, obviously, a promo. Yeah. So what's going to happen with that, with the split? Because obviously you've got Shakur and Josh Kelly on the same night.
Yeah, well, I'm going to New York for a few days after Vegas. Then I fly back for Newcastle. Eddie will be in New York for the ring show. It's a busy start to the month. Busy start to the year. Sorry. It's a great way to start. With huge fights back to back, week in, week out.
The fight with obviously I'm going on basically the stuff that I've seen on the internet. We've got the issue with Virgil Ortiz, and obviously getting that fight made with Boots. I mean, what is the bottom line with that? What is going to happen? It seems as if there's a bit of a to in and fro in. It's almost like, it sounds like Matchroom's been gazumped, like it was accepted and then like for a price, and now it's gone up. I mean, which one is it? What's going to happen? Have we got any updates on that?
It's the fight we want to make. Obviously Virgil Ortiz has his own situation ongoing with Golden Boy, which we're not a party to.
And his management now, by the looks of it.
Yeah, but his management will obviously be looking to get the best deal for him for the fight, of course. It's the fight, like I say, we want to make. We discussed the terms, as Eddie spoke about in various interviews many months ago, and we got those agreed. The terms that everyone was aligned upon, we got those agreed with our client in Jerome Boots Ennis. He wants the fight. He's ready for the fight. Let's see. We're hopeful we can still make the fight, but it's not our part. And I'm not necessarily saying it's Virgil Ortiz that's causing the issues. He's obviously looking to get the best deal for him, and he's going through that process on his end. He's going to go through a process with his promoter. We can only do so much, if that makes sense. We got Virgil Ortiz agreed. We got Boots agreed on the terms that were accepted or acceptable at the time. Whether they'd been discussed with the fighter or not is not, it wasn't our obligation at the time. So let's see. We want to make the biggest fights in the sport. So hopeful we can get something done.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the comments. So good evening to you guys that are listening in. I've got a comment here from Raz, is it? Does Frank think that Ben Shalom would let Azim fight Dalton on a Matchroom card? Obviously, it's next. Dalton is a champ, but is that the case? Is it an option, basically?
Look, I've said many a times, Dalton's now put himself on another level where I think it's
Yeah.
unfair to reference him on a level
Yeah.
with Adam Azim, right? And that's nothing,
Yeah.
taking nothing away from Adam Azim. You know, I'm not saying he's not going to go on and win world titles, but Dalton Smith's now in the leagues of the fights of the likes of the winner of Shakur against Teofimo Lopez, super, you know, huge global fights. That's the reality, you know, and Adam Azim fight is definitely big, and could it happen in the future? For sure. Could Adam, you know, Adam Azim's got to go and prove himself at that level. Dalton's gone and done it the hard way, you know. So I see a lot of comments saying this is the biggest fight for Dalton Smith. No, it's not. Look at the global names in the sport, and as we know, global fights deliver huge numbers. You know, again, that's not me putting down the fight. It's not me putting down Adam Azim, but it's just that's not the focus right now. And I'm sure fans won't question that. Like, Dalton's a world champion who's gone about it the hard way, and Adam's got to go and do that himself. I see a lot of talk about, you know, they're talking about him winning the IBF belt. That's going to be another 12, 18 months down the line. Richardson Hitchens has a mandatory. He's got a fight in the summer already. And then the next mandatory won't be called until the following year. So you're talking about summer of 2027. Dalton's on his own path, and that's all I can really say to that.
Yeah, I get that. It's just weird that's like now, obviously, the names we mentioned when before it was sort of like put on the back burner. But it is what it is. Boxing is boxing. Emma Willis, good afternoon to you. Hi, Abby and Frank. Is Rolly versus Gyasov next?
That's the fight that WBA have ordered. That's the fight we're pushing to make. There's no reason there should be any fight in between. You know, Gyasov's waited a long time for that fight. Chakran wants to become the world champion. He deserves his opportunity. He's worked hard for it as well. So that's the fight we're aiming to make next, and I don't see any changes to that.
Yeah. Any new signings, and this is from Hakan, any new signings to be announced in the coming months? I don't know why we get excited. Sure. It's like a gift, isn't it?
No, there'll definitely be signings. I'm not telling you who they are, but for sure there's signings.
I've been trying to get Frank to tell me who the new signings were. But imagine that, Troy Williamson versus Callum Simpson.
I know.
Wow.
The rematch.
Yeah, because the rematch is on. But remember, we haven't spoke since the fight.
I know. Tremendous performance from Troy. You know, unbelievable performance. And I think he goes in there and does it exactly the same, if not in better fashion this time around. You know,
Have you got a potential timescale for that? Sorry to cut you.
It's got to, it's got to be, I think, early May. I think it's got to be, or May time is the plan for that. I'm surprised they're taking the rematch, in all honesty, you know, because you saw the way the fight went the first time around. I don't, and again, I like Callum. He's a lovely guy.
Yeah,
but I think really he should move up in weight, in all honesty.
Like
you know, Troy just looked too good for him that night, and he'll do exactly the same this time around. And he'll set up, you know, it's unfortunate because he got ordered for the IBF world title. And he can't take that because obviously he's got this rematch set. We pushed very hard. We made proposals to make that happen. But look, I understand from the other side. I get it, of course, if that was the deal that was made. But yeah, he's going to set up a huge 2026 for himself.
Yeah, it's definitely a risk worth taking. Emma goes on to ask us what is happening with Beatrice?
Beatrice, we're looking at the next options in terms of a comeback fight to get her back in the ring. Okay. You know, look, it was a tough fight against Elif Turhan. Elif Turhan, you know, what a year she had and what a fighter she is. But yeah, the plan will be for Bea to get back in the ring and build her way back up.
Yeah. Here we go. Mark has said, hi, Abs and Frank. Is more of the Josh Kelly fight card going to be announced, or is it finalised?
It's all finalised now. It's all finalised. So that card's up and running for Jan 31st. Big card in Newcastle. I think it's the first world title fight in Newcastle for in excess of 10 years. You know, so excited to see that back up and running. Elif Turhan's back out on that card, of course. You know, that's going to be an exciting fight for her. So, yeah, it's going to be a big night in Newcastle on Jan 31st.
How did Josh Kelly come back to you, Frank? Because obviously I knew that Josh Kelly was originally a Matchroom fighter. Obviously, that's where I saw him in the first place. And then obviously he moved over to Wasserman. And then obviously he's come back to you. What type of contract is that? Are you sharing him? Are they managing him? How is that actually working? Is he a Matchroom fighter? How does it work?
Yeah, he's a Matchroom fighter. He signed with us. I've been speaking to Adam Booth for a long time about opportunities. He's got an advisory deal with Wasserman, but Matchroom is promoter now. I'm excited. We signed him because we believe he can win the world title, and that's why we wanted to bring it to Newcastle. Josh is a tremendous fighter, a tremendous talent. Many people. This is the fickle side of the sport. You fought Avanesian, he lost, he tested himself. And we call for great fights in this sport. We call for hard fights, and then someone loses and we say they're finished, And I think it took a while for Josh to rebuild. And I think he's in the stage of his career where he's going to go and win a world title and be in the biggest fights.
When you talk about, being in that mix and getting the best fights, other promoters that have fighters can't necessarily put them in that position. I guess that's why he's re-signed with you. And then obviously Wasserman's gone on to maybe an advisory. I'm presuming that's some kind of managerial role. What is it that, and it sounds like an obvious question, but what is it that puts Matchroom above the rest, when it comes to being able to put their fighters in really good positions, taking a fighter from another promoter and putting on the best that you can?
I think the key is activity and having the ability to put on the biggest shows. I believe we're the biggest global boxing promoter with them. We're doing close to 40 shows a year now around the world.
That's good.
This between the end of November and December, I think we were involved in 7 or 8 events. And we're always willing to work with people. As big as we are, it's not like we sit back and go, we're not going to put a fighter on another. Or take an opportunity away from a fighter because it's not on a Matchroom show. Our job is to deliver the best possible fights, and that's what we do time and time again. I think activity is key with fighters, being able to give them those opportunities. And not every promoter can do that.
When it comes to Saturday, I think the 21st of Feb, that's Nottingham. You've got the likes of Sandy Ryan back out again, and then we get Lee Wood and Josh Warrington. Talk to us about that fight, because sell that fight to me, because did we need it? Do we need it? What is it about this fight that is going to grab the public's attention?
I mean, you've seen it. We're about to sell out. I think by next week we'll be completely sold out. Going to have 9,000 people in there. That grabs the people's attention. It's a fight with a lot of spite, a lot of dislike, a lot more than it had in the first fight. It was a great fight the first time around. Josh Warrington was winning the first six rounds, I think it was. And then Lee Wood finished it in the style Lee Wood does. And it's a fight that's been called for. Has it taken longer than we maybe wanted? Yes. But again, I go back to the side of the sport that's fickle. Is like Josh Warrington got beat by Kakachi, and then everyone says, "Oh, he's finished." Like, people taking real fights, you're going to get beat. That's the reality of it. Doesn't mean you're over. It doesn't mean you're finished. I mean, look, there's a lot of fighters over the years as they get to the latter part of their career where people have that perception, oh, they should retire. And I'm sure I've said it about fighters, and then they go on this run that you wouldn't have expected. I actually think that one of the best ones of that is Zhilei Zhang. Like, look at what he did at the latter part of his career, So people want to see great fights. People want to see fights where there's intrigue, where there's storylines, where there is spite for the most part. And that's what you got in this fight. And it's a close fight. They've both had hard fights. They both had their losses. And they both want to show that they've still got something left to give the sport. And on February 21st, it's going to be a big night.
In regards to your production, because obviously you guys have got fingers in many pies when it comes to production. You've got an American link. You mentioned something about Matchroom's going to start doing like the storytelling when it comes to like the promos and the videos that are coming out.
Good promo for that show, by the way.
Well, there you go then. When are we going to start to see this? Because I'm one of these that buys into the storylines. Very soon.
Alex Haynes has done a tremendous job with this one. But that's where I think we're unrivaled as well, on the storytelling, on the promo. I think when you look at the content we put out all across last year and for many years now, no one comes close to it. And that's a big part of it. And that's what fighters want to be involved in as well.
Yes.
So you'll see a very good promo for that very, very soon.
I'm very interested
in that. And for Nunes Navarrete, actually.
And that one's what date's that one? That's a unification, isn't it?
Yes, unification, February 28th in Arizona.
68 DG says, will you put Whitaker in with Gradus Kraus? Obviously, Gradus has recently signed with Boxer, almost as if he's signed with Boxer to chase potentially the Ben Whitaker fight, a fight that I think Gradus called out when he was with GBM. a fight that he would like, what would you put him in? And if not, what is the plan for Ben Whittaker? He's gone a bit quiet since his showreel knockout before Christmas.
Yeah, look, he's the plan for him next is a US debut. No
Oh, it is
disrespect to
still happening.
Gradus Kraus, but Gradus Kraus is not on the level of Ben Whittaker. Like, no one really knows who Gradus Kraus is. I see interviews saying he's going to be an undisputed superstar of the sport. Like, you know, I must have missed it. But Ben Whittaker's on his own journey, on his own path. When you see the numbers he does, when you see those highlight knockout reels, you know, our aim is to get him set up for those world title fights. And we've got to do that in the right path, in the right manner, with activity. Like I say, US debut next. That's the plan for March, April. We're just finalising which card it goes on right now. That's always been the discussion when we signed him. He wanted to have activity all around the world, and US is a big market for him. So that's next. Then bring him back to the UK for a headline, August, September time. So we're excited about the Ben Whittaker journey. You know, November 29th was a great start, and now we obviously continue to step up the opponents. I think he's in a great place with us. I think with Andy Lee as well. You know, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, look, unless Gradus Kraus, you know, does some crazy stuff over the next 12, 18 months and becomes unified champion of the world, I don't see that as a fight. But you know, that's just my view.
Listen, I'm going to ask the question with Ben Whittaker. It seems as if obviously when he made his debut, when he was first out, when he was signed by a boxer, there was this character that was almost like saying, yep, I want to take on this person. I want Dan Aziz as my debut fight. He had that energy about him. He was reaching far forward because of his amateur pedigree, because he's an Olympic medalist. It seems as if when he's got with you, there's something in him where he seems to have kind of like looked at it from a panoramic view and sort of like matured, calmed a bit. He said, and like certain names have been thrown at him that he potentially called out earlier, and he was like, listen, I'm letting Matchroom manage who I fight, how I fight, etc. Did you guys like have a word in his ear and tell him to like chill out a bit, or is that some maturity or something that's happened to him where he's made himself like sit back and say, you know what, I'll let the promoters promote, I'll get into the fights, and they really are there to manage my career?
Look, I think it's a trust factor. You know, we've done this as a company for 40 plus years since we've been back involved at, 15, 16 odd years between myself and Eddie. Eddie mainly. But it's a trust factor. He knows we know what we're doing, and we're going to build him in the right manner. I don't think he had that belief in his previous. I can't speak for him, but I wouldn't think he had that belief because they haven't done it with anyone. They haven't taken anyone on that journey and built them in the right way. And as I keep saying, it's all about him. So it's about building him in the right way, not being pushed into fights that don't make any sense because a few people on Twitter say he should fight this person. You know. And sort of forgetting the external pressures. It's how do we best place him? I said in interviews, this is a 5-6, we signed a multi-year agreement, but this is the plan to promote him for the rest of his career. So how do we best position him to be ready as he steps through the ranks? Because there's levels in that, especially in that division with the high level of Bivol, Beterbiev, Benavid, all of these guys up there. There's those levels that you've got to step through. And we got to prepare him best for that. And you can't listen always to the external noise of this is the fight that should be done. That's the fight that should be done. This is what we do as a business. And he trusts us to deliver that alongside, Will, his manager, and especially Andy Lee, who is probably, I would say, undoubtedly one of the best trainers in the sport.
I've got a message here from Josie Frimpong. What's next for Craig Richards?
Look, he had a great win, obviously, in Ghana to end the year. And he had a long time in camp. I think he's just taken a bit of a break now and then getting back in big fights, mid part of the year. Craig is I think when you look at Craig's journey, Craig's a brilliant fighter and he's going to set himself up for those big fights. And I think getting that win over Dan Aziz, good name to get in there against and keep that activity, that was key. And now I'm glad we delivered that. And like I say, probably May, June time, you'll see him back out.
Okay, another one's asking, Johnny Ball's asking about Kieran Conway. What's happening with him?
Well, look, we're working through, actually speaking to his manager later today, working through fights and options for him. You know, you have to give him credit because he went in there where a lot of fighters maybe would have said, I'm not going to give George Liddard that chance. He went in there and
Yeah.
a brilliant win for George Liddard, of course, who goes on to big fights now. But, you know, Kieran will be back. Kieran will be back probably at a higher weight, I would think, moving up a weight. And there's interesting fights out there for him.
Okay. I've got to shout out this one because there's a super chat here. Alexander Wilson says, I know you've kind of answered this already. Does Frank have any comments
Do I get $5 for that question?
Yeah. It's nice, isn't it? Buys me a nice cheeky coffee, Frank.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks, Alexander. Look,
can you see the question?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it. It's one of those situations they're going to go through that process. I haven't read much into it. I've seen the headline points that I'm sure a lot of people have. I'm seeing there's a 30-odd page document that's come out about it, but I haven't read too much of it yet. We've seen it before, with promoters. I'm sure we'll see it again, and that process will be played out.
Right, I've got to ask, Frank, we've got to go over to Dana White. That's one of the things that I wanted to speak to you about. Something we spoke about years ago that you really admired the UFC model. We've obviously seen over the years Eddie with Dana White. Then obviously now we've got the TKOs for boxing. And it seems as if maybe Eddie and Dana haven't sat down and had a face-to-face conversation. So then us as media will get involved. And now it seems to be turning into a little bit of a to-in and a throw-in. And Dana said this and Eddie said that. What's happening? Zuffa's new, TKO's new as a boxing company. Just Matchroom side of it, really.
No, look, I've said on many occasions, they're obviously going to build a tremendous brand. It's what they do. Look at not just UFC, but what they've done with Power Slap. They've got they've got, as well as Power Slap, they've got all of the different stuff they do in the Apex, the BJJ stuff. They've got so many different brands that they operate in. They've got the WWE. You're talking about the biggest combat sports and leagues in the world. So, it would be stupid to think they're not going to come in and build something big, but they're also looking at it from a longer term view. They're not just rushing out and going to make a decision based on, again, external noise of people saying you should do this, you should do that. They're great at building brands. Do I think they can come in and do what they've done in UFC and boxing? No. But they will build a huge brand in boxing. But boxing has had heritage and, has been this sport that everyone wants to get into for hundreds of years. I mean, look at today. There's an announcement about, I think, I Visit Boxing doing a huge deal with YouTube. For example, boxing every few years, you got Triller came in, you got PLK Prime came in with tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. You got years before that, you had PBC with Waddell and Reed's $500 million or whatever it was. Boxing has always brought in huge money. I don't think anyone has done it with a team of people like these guys who are, immensely intelligent people, of course, but I don't think they can come in and just change the sport. You're talking about, I go back to a sport with so much heritage. UFC, MMA didn't have that. It was much easier to go in there
and control it.
I'm not saying it was an easy job, by the way, because everyone would be doing it, but it was a lot easier to do that than it would be in boxing. And I think when you look at the types of cards, the types of names they're talking about, it's not going to change the face of boxing, the kind of fighters they're talking about. So it'll be interesting to see what they do differently. I think as well, it's boxing, you have to immerse yourself in non-stop. And when I listen to Dana White talk about the fights, it seems to lack a bit of passion or understanding or knowledge necessarily, I'm always open. I'm not the biggest boxing nut in the world, but I think I have a very good knowledge of the sport as a whole. And the fighters that we work with and the fighters on our shows and other shows. And I think from watching some of the interviews when he talks about boxing, it sort of, for me, lacks that passion and energy and understanding necessarily for the sport. But look, I think it's great for the sport. Any investment in the sport is good. And we've seen lots of investment, like I said just before, comes in, comes out, and hopefully they stay around for a long time.
Matchroom's been going for a very long time. Obviously, Zuffa's just come into it. The sport is about longevity. The thing is with you guys, you've not just got boxing, you've got darts, and I believe snooker.
Snooker, yeah.
So when you talk about always having a fail safe, not saying that each individual business is a fail safe, but you've spread yourself over other core sports that maybe there's some avid snooker fans that know everything about Matchroom snooker, or there's the avid darts fans that know everything about darts. The business strategy of Matchroom then, not to entirely focus on one sport, and how that sees you above the rest within the sport, because it's like there's a constant investment into being different, not just having a one-trick pony, one for a better word.
Yeah, like I think I've said it on numerous occasions. There's a lot of people in boxing who just know boxing, right? And know the sport of boxing. It's a show business, isn't it? You got to put on a show, and you got to put on events that people want to be at, be seen at, and be around. And I think that's what we do differently. We're an events business, with a huge passion for boxing, of course.
Yeah.
But we do 400-500 events a year, and we take things that work across that event into this, and this sport into that, and sometimes if all you know is boxing and the love and passion for the sport of boxing, you make decisions that aren't logical, and I think when
Give us an example of that, Frank.
I think when you're immersed in the sport and it's all you hear and all you know, especially social media now as well, it's like you're driven to make decisions by external factors again. And people saying they should do this, they should do that, where it's like, no, let's think about this product as a whole and what we're doing with it for the long term, not just rash decisions, and like I say, that's where as much as I've been in boxing a long time, I still make decisions personally based on logic, less heart and passion for boxing all the time. And that's where Eddie and I are probably a perfect mix, and we balance each other out because he is the hardcore boxing guy, and I'm a bit more, well, does it make sense financially? Because at the end of the day, people don't like talking about money in boxing and promoters making money. We're all here to make, we wouldn't be doing it. We're not doing it for a laugh, just like any business in the world. It's about making money. And if we don't make money, we wouldn't be here next year. So it wouldn't be any good to anyone.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that there's that element that comes into it. So yeah, that for me is one of the key factors for us as a business, is we're much bigger than just the sport of boxing.
Okay, I am going to ask the final question, guys, because we've been going for half an hour. Jai Opataya and BAM extending with Matchroom. And that comes from Nathan.
Working through details now. Lots going on. Jai's obviously been having his own fight. He had his last fight on Stan, of course. We're exclusive to DAZN. But BAM, we're working through details now to get him back out early part of the year, and excited about the future. So let's see.
Okay, nice one. Listen, Frank, I know we didn't touch on it, but I just want to say, obviously, from the channel, which is me, myself, and I, to pass on condolences to Anthony Joshua, and obviously the family of the deceased, his two friends that he lost not too long ago. So it's just condolences. I don't want to go into it. I respect the fact that the company, the business, have kind of just stayed quiet on it, one for a better word, because you get, lots of people trying to pry, almost vultures, capitalizing off it. And I've just kind of stayed out of it. But I still do want to pass on my condolences.
Thank you. Yeah, look, he's got to be given time, of course. And like I say, saying from us, the condolences to the families and everyone, close to them, because, we knew both guys, both Senior and Lats, for 12, 13 years. And a not just close part of his team, but, friends, more important than just part of his team. His friends from very early on in his life. So yeah, one of something where AJ needs time. There's a lot of questions from people now as to what's next, but I think he needs time, and people have to respect that, like you said there.
Yeah. Frank, I'm going to leave you to it. Happy New Year to you. I'll see you in Nottingham. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that. Enjoy the globe trotting as you do. I'll call you Judith Chalmers. That's your nickname, but we'll catch up in Nottingham.
I'll see you there. Look forward to it.
All right, then. You take care, Frank.
Thanks very much. See you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We had the wonderful Frank Smith with us this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a couple of silly questions, which I'm not going to address. But for those of you that asked the great questions, thank you as per usual. Frank doesn't have to give me his time, but he always does. This will be replayed again on the replay. But for those of you that join the chat, ask the questions, you guys are fantastic. Like I said, you'll catch me in Nottingham. I'll probably be doing watch-alongs on Saturday the 31st because we've got two UK shows again, and I definitely will not be doing any lives for the American time. So listen, enjoy your weekend. Thanks once again, and I shall see you soon. And as we say at October Red, stay ready.
People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.
October Red is sponsored by SA Security. Maximum security, minimum fuss.